We're going all the way back to ancient Greece
Ooh, very exciting.
to explore the story of Oedipus, the king of Thebes.
Okay,
And we'll be looking at Sophocles' play, Oedipus Rex, as our source.
sounds good.
So picture this. A city is ravaged by a plague, and everyone is desperate for answers.
Sounds pretty bleak.
Yeah, it's a very dramatic start.
Right.
But that's how Sophocles sets the stage in this play.
Yeah, he really throws us right into the action and the desperation.
Yeah, and the play begins actually with the priest pleading with Oedipus to see the city.
So the priest is kind of like a representative of the people, right?
Exactly. He's the voice of the Thebans who are suffering under this plague.
Okay.
And Thebes itself is a pretty significant city in Greek mythology.
Oh, absolutely. It has a rich history and plays a big role in a lot of myths.
And its location is interesting too, overlooked by Mount Kithaeron.
Right, and Mount Kithaeron becomes important later in the story as well.
Yeah, it's like a looming presence throughout the play, kind of
Yeah.
a symbol of both refuge and danger.
I like that.
So anyway, Oedipus, being a good king, is determined to save his people.
Makes sense.
So he sends his brother-in-law Creon to the oracle at Delphi to seek guidance.
Oh, the oracle at Delphi, always a source of cryptic pronouncements.
Exactly, and this time is no different.
Okay, so what does the oracle say?
The oracle declares that the plague will only end when the murderer of Laius, the former king, is found and punished.
Oh, that's a tall order.
Yeah, and here's where the irony starts to kick in.
Oh, I'm intrigued.
Oedipus is so determined to find the killer,
Right.
but he has no idea that he himself is the one he's looking for.
Oh, wow. So he's basically hunting himself.
Exactly, and he even curses the unknown murderer, promising a fate worse than death.
Talk about dramatic irony.
It's a classic case of it, and it really highlights the tragic nature of Oedipus's character.
A good king, but ultimately doomed by fate.
Exactly.
So how does Oedipus go about trying to find this murderer?
Well, Sophocles gives us these clues throughout the play that slowly point Oedipus toward the truth.
Oh, like a detective story almost.
Kind of, yeah. So at first there are these rumors about a band of robbers who attacked Laius.
Okay.
But then a surviving witness emerges and suggests that there was only one attacker.
Interesting.
And Oedipus latches on to this idea of robbers, maybe to distance himself from the crime.
Yeah, that makes sense psychologically.
Right, so he's already kind of avoiding the truth, even at this early stage.
I see.
And then, following the advice he's given, Oedipus decides to consult Tiresias.
Oh, the blind seer of Thebes.
Yes, yeah.
He always brings a sense of mystery and foreboding.
He really does. And this confrontation between Oedipus and Tiresias is one of the most dramatic moments in the play.
Okay, why is that?
Well, Tiresias, though, physically blind, can see the truth that Oedipus is so desperately trying to avoid.
Oh, so it's like he has a different kind of sight, a deeper understanding.
Exactly. And at first he's reluctant to speak, which only adds to the tension.
Makes sense.
But finally he accuses Oedipus directly of being the murderer.
Wow. How does Oedipus react to that?
Not well.
I can imagine.
He flies into a rage, accusing Tiresias of conspiring with Creon to overthrow him.
So his pride is blinding him to the truth.
Exactly. And this whole idea of blindness is really important in the play.
How so?
Well, on one level, Tiresias is physically blind, but he can see the truth.
Right.
But Oedipus, with his perfect sight, is blind to his own reality.
Oh, that's a great point. Sophocles is using blindness as a metaphor.
Yes, exactly, for knowledge and ignorance.
So it's not just about physical sight, it's about seeing the truth about yourself and the world.
Precisely. And before leaving, Tiresias delivers this chilling prophecy.
Okay, what does he say?
He foretells that Oedipus will one day discover his true parentage, and that this discovery will lead to his downfall.
Ooh, that sends chills down my spine.
Yeah, it's a pretty dark foreshadowing.
It really sets the stage for the rest of the play.
And it's a turning point because now Oedipus starts to doubt himself just a little.
Even though he's still convinced he's the hero.
Exactly. And just when things couldn't get more intense, a messenger arrives from Corinth with some unexpected news.
Oh, this sounds like it's gonna shake things up.
It definitely does. The messenger brings news that Polybus, the man Oedipus believes to be his father, has died.
Oh, wow.
And at first, Oedipus thinks he's escaped a prophecy.
Because he didn't kill his father?
Right. But remember, the prophecy had two parts.
Oh, right. He was also supposed to marry his mother?
Exactly. And that fear still lingers in the back of his mind.
So even though he's relieved about Polybus, he's still anxious.
Yeah, there's this underlying tension that just won't go away.
I can see why.
And then the Corinthian messenger, trying to put Oedipus at ease, reveals something even more shocking.
What's that?
He tells Oedipus that Polybus wasn't his biological father after all.
Hold on, so who was his father?
Well, the messenger explained that he received Oedipus as a baby from a shepherd on Mount Kithaeron.
Wait a minute, Mount Kithaeron, isn't that where Laius was murdered?
It is indeed, and suddenly all the pieces start to fall into place.
Oh, wow. This is getting intense.
It is, and we're left with this sense of dread, like something terrible is about to happen.
So Oedipus is getting closer to the truth, whether he likes it or not.
Exactly, and we'll have to wait for part 2 to see how this all
Oh,
unfolds.
so wait.
So we left off with Oedipus finding out he was found as a baby on Mount Kithaeron.
Yeah, the same place Laius was killed.
Right, and that's where things get really complicated.
I bet.
Now, Jocasta, Oedipus's wife,
Right.
she starts to get really scared.
Oh, why is that?
Well, she's been listening to all this talk about prophecies and origins, and she's starting to connect the dots.
Ooh, I see. She's sensing where this is all heading.
Exactly. And she doesn't like it one bit.
Makes sense.
She tries to convince Oedipus to just let it go.
To stop digging into the past?
Yeah, she's like, maybe these prophecies aren't so reliable after all. Maybe ignorance is bliss.
But Oedipus isn't one to back down from a challenge, is he?
Nope. He's determined to uncover the truth no matter what.
Even if it destroys him.
Exactly. And this is part of what makes him such a tragic figure.
Right. He's driven by this noble pursuit of knowledge,
Yep.
but it ultimately leads to his downfall.
So Oedipus, ignoring Jocasta's pleas, summons the shepherd who gave him away as a baby.
The one who found him on Mount Kithaeron.
Yep, the same one, and this guy's terrified.
I can imagine he knows he holds the key to a very dangerous secret.
And he tries to avoid answering Oedipus's questions.
But Oedipus is relentless.
He won't let up until he gets the truth.
And the truth is about to come crashing down on him.
The tension in this scene is almost unbearable.
It's like watching a car crash in slow motion.
You know it's going to be bad, but you can't look away.
Exactly. And finally, the shepherd breaks down and reveals everything.
He tells Oedipus that the baby he found was the son of Laius and Jocasta.
Wow. So Oedipus finally realizes he killed his own father and married his own mother.
It's a devastating realization,
Yeah.
and it completely shatters Oedipus's world.
His whole identity is built on a lie.
And Jocasta, unable to cope with the guilt and shame, rushes off and kills herself.
Oh my God, that's awful.
It's a truly tragic moment, and it shows just how powerful the truth can be.
Sometimes the truth can be more destructive than any lie.
And Oedipus is now left to deal with the consequences of his actions.
How does he react to all of this?
Well, he's obviously completely distraught.
Makes sense.
And in a fit of grief and despair, he grabs Jocasta's brooches and blinds himself.
He blinds himself.
Yeah, he can't bear to look upon the world knowing what he's
It's
done.
a symbolic act, isn't it?
It represents the darkness that has now consumed his life, both literally and figuratively.
And it shows the depth of his guilt and shame.
The once proud and powerful king is now a broken man, completely destroyed by the truth.
And the truth was what he was searching for all along.
The irony is almost too much to bear.
It's a classic Greek tragedy.
Welcome back to our deep dive. It's hard to believe this is our final part.
I know, it feels like we just started.
But we've come a long way in the story of Oedipus,
We have.
and things are looking pretty bleak for him at the moment.
Yeah, he's really hit rock bottom.
Absolutely. He's blinded himself, his wife and mother is dead, and he's facing the full weight of his actions.
So how does he handle this, this immense guilt and shame?
Well, what's interesting is that Oedipus doesn't shy away from responsibility.
Huh.
He doesn't make excuses or try to deny what he's done.
That's surprising considering he didn't kill Laius intentionally.
I know, but he owns up to it. He acknowledges that he's brought this disaster upon himself and Thebes.
Wow. So even in his broken state, he's showing a sense of integrity.
Exactly. He's still the same Oedipus in a way, still striving for justice, even if it means punishing himself.
I see.
And so he begs Creon, his brother-in-law, who's now in charge of Thebes, to banish him from the city.
So he's choosing exile as a form of atonement.
Exactly. He believes that his presence is a curse on Thebes, and that only his removal can restore balance.
It's a pretty stark contrast from the beginning of the play, isn't it?
Yeah, he started as a powerful king trying to save his city. Now he's an outcast seeking to save it by leaving.
What a tragic fall from grace.
It really is, and it speaks to the power of fate and the limits of human control.
So what happens to his daughters Antigone and Ismene?
Well, Oedipus asks Creon to care for them, which is, another heartbreaking moment.
Yeah, these two young women are left to deal with the fallout of their family's tragedy.
It's a reminder that the consequences of Oedipus's actions ripple outward, affecting those around him.
And their story doesn't end here, does it?
Not at all. Sophocles actually wrote other plays about Antigone and Ismene exploring their struggles and their own encounters with fate.
So Oedipus Rex is just one piece of a larger saga.
Exactly. It's a really rich and complex world that Sophocles created.
Well, I think we've covered a lot of ground in this step dive.
We have, and I hope our listeners have gained a deeper appreciation for this incredible play.
Me too. It's a story that stays with you long after you've read it or seen it performed.
Absolutely. It makes you think about fate, free will, the nature of truth, and the consequences of our actions.
Timeless themes that are still relevant today.
And on that note, I think it's time to wrap up our deep dive into Oedipus Rex.
Thanks for guiding us through it.
It was my pleasure, and thank you to our listeners for joining us on this journey into ancient Greece and the world of Sophocles.